West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News.
I'm Peter Boyles. The
710
guys are back on
KNUS.
Monday. This is coming up on the final couple of hours of filling in for Jeff and Bill on a Friday morning, the 11th of July, 2025. 86 the high, 85 on Saturday, Sunday, 93 degrees. And tomorrow we might do open lines Saturday. We've never done that before, but we've been so jammed up all week. So much is going on, and so many people have an opinion or an idea they want to talk about. We thought we would. Coming up in the next hour, Dr. Daddio will be our guest. But in the meantime, talking about having just a friend in the business, and oh, wait a minute, gosh, let me put that back up. I forgot that. I always jump ahead too quick. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is time for the Blake Olson report, if you would, Billy, one time.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
There he is.
That was a phenomenal hour.
Yeah,
of radio. That was so good, man. You go back and listen to that one. That was a great hour.
Well,
wow.
I always said that, and you know this as well as I do, the off-air stuff is always better than the on-air stuff.
Oh, no doubt. Everybody talks about that. I remember in Dallas at the CBS affiliate that I worked at in TV, that's all we ever talked about. It was like, if there was just a show that just had everything that wasn't on the air, that would be a much better show.
I always said that about pro wrestling. If they'd have shown what was going on in the locker room as opposed to what was going on in the ring, then that would have really, really been good. It has been quite a week, and we're going to talk about it with Jeff coming up. But last night, and I'm looking at a lot of different websites, and I'm getting a lot of different text messages. Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz was Sean Spicer, and he blows holes into everything that's been said by Pam Bondi and everybody else. He said, I've seen the list. The list exists. What happens out of that? What do you think happens out of that, Blake?
I mean, I told you 2 hours ago, I'm changing every day, and I go back and forth on this, back and forth. And I don't think much, although I wouldn't be shocked if Bondi loses her job in a month. I don't
give her that long.
Okay, so you say in the next couple days, a week or so?
Yes.
Okay. That wouldn't surprise me, but I wouldn't be shocked if all of them are in place. And I'll play something later in the newscast why I think that.
Fair enough. Newscast is yours. There we go.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good morning. TGIF, 69 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 90 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, a regional task force led by the Aurora Police Department has arrested 16 people thought to be members of 2 street gangs involved in criminal activity in the Denver area. It includes 9 juveniles and 7 adults. Charges being placed against the suspects include attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, assault, menacing, and aggravated robbery. It's been a week since raging floodwaters took central Texas by surprise, leaving at least 120 people dead and more than 160 still missing. DJT and First Lady Melania are expected to visit the region today, where they'll see the damage firsthand and get a briefing on ongoing recovery efforts. Federal immigration agents clashed with non-peaceful protesters Thursday in Southern California over DJT's immigration policy, illegal immigration policy. They never write that. A standoff took place as ICE agents raided a state-licensed cannabis farm in Camarillo. Numerous arrests were made and several people ended up in the hospital. A federal judge, by the way, expected to issue a ruling today that could halt ICE raids in L.A. A young lady posted this on her platform. She's putting everything on the line for the violent criminals and illegal immigrants sent to Alligator Alcatraz.
In less than 24 hours, I'm driving to Alligator Alcatraz to resist the atrocities going on there. I barely have enough money to make it there with gas, and I'm taking time off work, who have been very understanding, but I'm not sure I'll have a job to come back to. And I am afraid of bugs and snakes, and I don't like camping, and I don't like being outdoors. I'm terrified, and yet I still feel like it is worth it to sacrifice my comfort and my privilege and whatever else, because there's a concentration camp that my government built, and I can get to it, and I can do something.
Goodness. Her handle is Flower-Loving Crybaby. God bless her.
No.
It's like we're living in the 60s, isn't it? I mean, was the 60s this bad? No, it wasn't, was it?
Yeah.
It was?
Yeah, but it ended.
Yeah, but it
ended. It ended.
Exactly. So once again, Scott Adams on Epstein. This is more of that, and this is why I'm answering Pete the way I am now.
But if you trust Trump to handle the country's interests first, then you should also trust him to know when to lie to you, and that when that's in your best interest or the best interest of the country as a whole. So that's where I'm at. To me, it's obvious that Bongino and Bondi and Kash Patel and Trump are all lying. I just accept that as a fact, because they could not wink at us any harder, could they? Wink, wink. We didn't find anything. Wink, wink, wink. To me, they're doing the best they can.
I thought that was spot on. Perfect.
Yeah, no. But it's
Yeah.
what people and in the pro-Trump movement are starting to come around and say this pretty much the same things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think they could survive. I don't know. We'll see.
I don't think so.
Okay. This is going to be another one. I mean, just wow. Interesting to watch. I wish we didn't have to go through it, but we do. Rockies at the Reds tonight. First pitch, 5:10. 66 in Englewood, 66 in Brighton, 69 in Denver. Pete has the con.
Here we go, man.
I've always wanted to say that. Him for Jeff and Billy. Pete has the con. He continues. Blake Olson, News Talk, 710 KNUS.
A cold front will be paying a visit to the Front Range later this morning, so we'll start off warm, but then a gusty north wind will develop with developing showers and thunderstorms. Showers and thunderstorms could be strong to severe this afternoon, and we may see thunderstorms linger late into the evening before ending. Highs mid to upper 80s and falling, upper 50s tonight, cooler with more showers and thunderstorms, low to mid 80s Saturday. Weather presented by Colorado's Best Roofing. Has hail damage your home or business? Colorado's Best Roofing offers expert hail damage assessments and assistance with insurance claims. Schedule your free inspection at roofingcolorado.com. Visit roofingcolorado.com today. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Good morning, everyone. Peter Boyle's in for the fellows. They're back Monday morning. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, we do our radio show. It looks like we're going to open lines Saturday morning. Coming up in the next hour, the one, the only, Dr. Daddio. In the meantime, please say good morning. And again, a true friend. We work together. We do YouTube together. We do this AM radio stuff together, and we talk a lot. Brother Jeff is with us, and hey, man, thanks for doing this, and you're going to stick around and work with Daddy with me as well. So, Jeffrey, thank you, and good morning.
Good morning, and it is true. We talk a lot, and so for those who are a little uncomfortable with what we talk about, here we go. Good morning, Peter. How are you?
Good morning, sir. You know, I'm well, and I know you're being the Dad of the Year. You get the Father of the Year award, and so otherwise you would be in the studio with us. You and I have talked a lot about this Epstein story and what is the truth, and it's slipping out. Last night, and I know you were busy, but I don't know if you've seen the story of Harvard Law School professor, he's at Emeritus now, Alan Dershowitz. And Dershowitz got jacketed by a woman who said that she was part of Epstein's stable, and he had to write a book and hire people to get himself out from under it. And last night he's on television, and he's with Sean Spicer, and he said, and I'll read you some quotes. Documents are being, now this is from Dershowitz, documents are being suppressed to protect individuals. I know the names of the individuals. I know why they're being suppressed. I know who's suppressing them. I am bound by confidentiality. I know the names of people whose files were being suppressed in order to protect them, and that's wrong. So Spicer asks him if the people on the list were politicians or business leaders. Dershowitz said they are everything. And Dershowitz asserts that he'd seen the materials due to the accusations he faced from ex-Epstein accuser, Virginia, I think she pronounced it Guffey, who said he's bound by secrecy by a court order. And later, by the way, Virginia, recanted her accusations against Dershowitz. And then prior to her death, and this morning we had Mike Connors on with us, and he said, assuming she was a suicide. Wow. So what do you think this is about, and what do you think is going to happen? Brother Jeff is here.
Well, I could tell you, if you follow this thread, it's not hard to get to the conclusion. Of course, there's always someone or someones who know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And so the only thing he probably didn't address is many of us don't believe that Epstein killed himself. But we do know that that list exists. We don't know where it is. And you and I know more than many that there have been powerful entities across all spectrums and backgrounds that have been on lists, and people have disappeared, and people have, like you mentioned in the comment, apparently committed suicide. I just think that if you just follow the pattern, it's not hard to believe there's more to this Epstein story than is being told. And most people who just use an ounce of common sense will know that there are some powerful individuals whose names shall not come out, regardless of, filings, regardless of, court proceedings, and et cetera. So I don't find this hard to believe. As a matter of fact, I've heard and seen this story over and over again as it relates to money, power, and what some individuals can do and obviously get away with.
Open up the phone lines, 303-696-1971. Brother Jeff and Peter Boyles, Daddy-O coming up. The question, I've now done this about 10 times, but the Watergate historians, they begin with, and this is the question I will ask you, and I'll answer it first. Yes, I believe there is a cover-up going on. Yes, I believe there's a conspiracy. Then when you say, having said that, then what is it that this wall is being, or attempted to being built to protect who, what, or why? So, first of all, Jeffy, I think I know the answer. Do you believe it's a conspiracy? Do you believe it's a cover-up?
Absolutely. And by the very basic definition of conspiracy, two or more individuals plotting to do something illegal. Absolutely, there's a conspiracy. Certainly, there's a cover-up. And I think that more people in society are seeing that the rules apply to some, but not to all. And I think most people can agree on that. Most people are now more doubtful about their role, the role of government, their leaders, the alphabet groups, everything. They're second-guessing. And for us to even have this conversation, I'm sure there was a time where people would say, this is absolutely not what's happening. It couldn't happen. It could happen somewhere else, but not here. And I think more people are saying now, you know what, it's happening more and more. I think the Me Too movement was a watershed moment. I think that powerful individuals have been exposed. And what's most surprising is that there are a lot of individuals that are not surprised.
Yeah, in a greater sense, you're right. I mean, I haven't been shocked about something in a long time, and this doesn't shock me. I think it's a combination. Peter Boyle's in for the fellows, and Brother Jeff, our guest, 303-696-1971. Join the show. What is it that you believe about this? But it's a combination of Watergate, what I witnessed in Players and Sugar, and you and I spent a lot of time talking about that. And, of course, but it's on such a greater scale, maybe not a greater scale than Watergate, but it's a greater scale than certainly Players and Sugar. But every one of these things happened in Players and Sugar. Media they attempted and got away with, I don't want to say blackmail, but stopping a lot of the stories getting out. And in that press conference, and we can play it, Donald Trump just blows it off. And he turns it over, and Bondi starts to say that there's no client list, and that Jeffrey Epstein didn't take his own life. Well, I mean, pretty much people have come out and it's the FBI, and you can see Kash Patel, and you watch Bongino, Jeffrey. They're sitting there, and they're uncomfortable in their own skins. They're sweating rocks. They know. They know. Don't you think they know?
They absolutely do know. I mean, there's a short-term memory in the news cycle, and you'll recall weeks ago, you and I had a conversation about when Elon Musk went nuclear on President Trump and attached the name Epstein to Trump. And I said, with that being said, you can expect a bomb to be dropped somewhere in the world because that is nuclear. And now this Epstein name is coming up again. People are getting uncomfortable. I don't know how much the president knows about, Epstein. I don't know how much Diddy knows about Epstein. I don't know how much, any of these powerful entities who are untouchable know, but I guarantee you those tentacles are touching. And I wouldn't be surprised in terms of being able to connect this acquittal of Diddy to some of this same behavior.
You know what? That's brilliant. That's well thought out. People expected them to drop the piano on Diddy, and they didn't, did they?
Well, they tried, but Diddy had more resources probably than the prosecution. He had top-notch lawyers that all they had to do was plant a seed of doubt. The federal government overreached and overcharged, as they always do, because they want you to plead down to something. And at the end of the day, with all that we know and all that we've heard, it's largely whittled down to the Mann Act. and a first offense in terms of prostitution, I can't even believe that Diddy was not even able to make bail. I guarantee you he's going to get time served, and he may even be pardoned or, pardoned from the president.
Wow. 303-696-1971. Join it. And I got so many notes now on this one. That question came up at that press conference. President Trump answered, are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? The guy's been talked about for years. We have Texas, we have this, we have all these things. 303-696-19. I don't know where that was coming from, but more. I said, we have Texas, we have all of this, and then people are still talking about this guy, this creep, that's unbelievable. Do you want to waste time? I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this when we have some of the greatest successes and also tragedies and what's happened in Texas. It seems like a desecration. In the meantime, here's Musk saying, oh no, this is a cover-up because of the involvement of Donald Trump. What is to be believed? Jeffrey?
Well, there's some there. And I believe that someone, particularly the richest man in the world, has access to information and resources that we would never have access to. It would be hard for someone to believe that their president would be involved in any of this. I'm not saying that the president is, but the way that you explain things is really telling as well. It's easy to say, you know what, this is outrageous. There are a lot of things going on in the world, and I have nothing to do with any of that. However, when you keep punting the ball and kicking it a little further and saying things like, don't talk about that, let's talk about this, it just, it creates more doubt in the minds of individuals who want to believe you.
Yes, I mean, I had the same reaction. Donald Trump knew Epstein, but also means nothing. At the same time, Bill Clinton was a frequent flyer on the Lolita Express that took prominent people to Epstein's private island, including financiers, billionaires, lawyers, even a British prince goes. And
I remember Bill Gates was attached to that same story, and I think his wife left him when his name was attached to Epstein.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and she said that. She said, I'm out of here. The names they say there's maybe 1,000 Johns and 1,000 plus victims. That's really, I mean, that's incredibly widespread. In Players and Sugar, everybody was a willing participant. These young girls, and in Florida, they were getting homeless kids and bringing them in, and then they'd use the homeless kids to go out and find more girls to bring to Jeffrey Epstein. And remember when he was in jail down there, Jeffrey, he was like Al Capone in Cook County. Remember, he could leave during the day, and he came back at night. And I'm, again, looking at the wire, and it says, the Justice Department, there is no client list. The Justice says in memo that despite herself, Bondi, implying in February that they had a list on her desk, she now says, well, that was these files, and she had Dr. King and Jack Kennedy. There are so many explanations and unanswered questions. And I look at this, and Epstein, do you think he was blackmailing these prominent people, was part of his actions, and maybe that's why he was killed? Or was he killed?
Of course. Remember, he lost his life, under 24-hour suicide watch.
Yeah.
And so for anyone to believe that any business person doesn't have a client list is outrageous. And to believe that someone who's making the type of money that is being discussed doesn't have, a list of well-connected individuals that can undergird that lifestyle is also ridiculous. I know that there were individuals when Epstein was arrested that were nervous as all get out, and I would not be surprised if the most powerful of them, I mean, you're talking about world leaders, you're talking about prominent aristocrats, you're talking jet setters and all of those different things. When a key individual is arrested, a lot of individuals, I'm pretty sure, began to get very nervous. And so was there a client list? Absolutely. Where is it at? We don't know. Will it ever come to light? I'm not sure, but I'm sure that it exists.
Well, Dershowitz says it exists. And if you go back to 2021, when all of this began to happen, there were people that said, yeah, there were books. And I go back to Heidi Fleiss, and I go back to my own experiences with Players and Sugar. Of course there were. And I think there are two copies of it. I think one is in the custody of the Denver Police Department, and I believe the other one is in the hands of a certain lawyer. And they were Scotty Ewing's. And if anybody thinks for a second, we're going to break and get the calls in here. If anybody thinks that you could just walk up to the front door of Scotty Ewing, he had 4 locations, Jeffrey, to serve you. And if you could just walk up and knock on the door, hey, it's me and Jeff, we're here to meet some women, they would have never let us in. They would have never let us in. Never, ever. I mean, they needed like a Dun and Brad. They had to know who you were. And if you were on that list.
Peter, you can't get into a garden variety crack house without someone leading you through the door.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is an insurance policy. Someone has this information. Remember, the Cassie Ventura tapes didn't come out until Diddy's house was raided. Somebody has something, and they're holding it to protect themselves, and a lot of people are nervous.
Adam, would you put Jeff on hold, please? 303-696-1971. Two lines are open. What do you believe, seriously, at the end of this week? And what about when Dershowitz last night says, I saw the list. I saw it. What does that now do to Pam Bondi? And I think that she's on the clock. 710 KNUS. Good morning, everyone. 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station. I'm Peter Boyles. My final weekday, and the guys are back on Monday and back tomorrow at 9 o'clock here on 710 KNUS. Our guest is Brother Jeff, and coming up, Dr. Daddio. We go to Ken in Aurora. Ken, thanks for calling the show. Of course, we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Ken, your thoughts?
Well, you know, about this whole Epstein thing, as I sit here, I'm thinking, well, I've heard on other talk shows the idea that one of the intelligence agencies, we could all guess who that might be, could be involved in this for blackmail purposes. And then I've also heard the Israeli intelligence people might have put Epstein up to this or been playing a big role in it. And then thirdly, there's always these players in the background of these things that their names sooner or later come out, like in, I remember the Iran-Contra thing. Mm-hmm. There was this guy named General Secord, and he was like neck deep in it. He was almost, or it sounded like he was more in it than Oliver North was. So I think there's probably a there on this. I don't think it's as being presented to us. And there's just more than meets the eye. Unfortunately, I'm a little suspicious because of the Trump thing. And then finally, do you think that if I put my conspiracy cap on, a lot of the things that Tulsi Gabbard was disclosing, do you think they might have been a smokescreen to cloud this issue? In other words, look over here at this bright, shiny object, so you're not paying attention to this other issue.
All right, Jeffrey.
So where are you guys
Jeff?
on this?
Jeff, go ahead.
Well, you know, I'm with you, Ken, in terms of, you know, the core of what you said is there's some doubt in your mind in terms of who's being honest and who's being dishonest. You're looking for, and we're looking for the why and the who, but we do know that there is something there. And you brought up another historical moment that led to the distrust of many people who had absolute trust in the government when you start talking about, you know, Ollie North and the Iran-Contra dynamic and the money being, you know, drugs for arms and funding and all of those different things. And then all of a sudden, the one who takes the fall is the low-level military individual named Ollie North, when you know that those commands come from up on high, that, you know, military folks are not just off being rogues doing their own thing without anybody knowing about it. So, Ken, I agree with your premise, if in fact it is. You know what? There's conversations, there's doubt, and there's more to this than what we are being told.
One thing is, Peter, one thing is for sure with the does anyone really believe that a Marine lieutenant colonel at the Pentagon with a beautiful assistant made all of those decisions? And the answer is no. But they let him hang, as Jeffrey said. I met Oliver North one night and had a long conversation with him. But if you think that a light colonel at the Pentagon was able to do all of that, it's the same thing. Do you think that Bondi on her own comes out, or Kash Patel, or for that matter, Bongino, come out and say the things that they said without having some instructions? Ken, your thoughts first.
Well, I tend to agree. I really, you know, my problem is I love what the good things that Trump has done for the country that nobody else in my lifetime has been able to muster up the courage and tear some of these Band-Aids off of these wounds of the country. But, you know, having said that, you know, like I was mentioning about maybe the Israelis having something to do with it. I'm suspicious usually about anything. When somebody tells me don't worry about it, I'm thinking that's when I start worrying about it.
Yeah.
And then as far as, let's take that war in Gaza. The Palestinians put 350 miles of tunnels there, I know when there's an extra rabbit in my yard, albeit a small yard, but how did that happen without anybody knowing? And these intelligence agencies, as a group, the taxpayers, be it the Israelis or American taxpayers, pay billions, in essence, I guess, maybe to be deceived or lied to or covered up. Like, what? We just didn't know. We didn't know 9/11 was coming. We didn't know anything about this. We heard a little something, but and so there's too much, in my mind, suspicion for nothing to be there as it is presented. And, Bondi and Trump may have a good reason for covering it up.
But then,
maybe, who knows?
Peter, this is Peter Boyles again. And it goes back to this Watergate model. If Nixon and company were attempting to cover up not only the break-in but the payoffs, and as many people have said, the cover-ups and the lies were worse than the crime itself, and I think that holds up. So if this guy, but Epstein is a child molester. Epstein's not Heidi Fleiss running an adult prostitution ring, and it's not what happened here with Players and Sugar. This guy, they think has 1,000 victims, and they're girls. They're not women. They're girls. And Jeffrey, what do you do with that?
Well, I think we gotta look at this in segments, and separate the politics and the power for just a moment, and look at it in terms of fire and desire. Jeffrey Epstein is also maybe, I don't know the details of what he has done or he didn't do because he never lived to be able to tell these stories. But when you start talking about pedophilia and you start talking about someone who can broker and bring people's desires and largest fantasies to life, like Fantasy Island, that's who he is. He's a facilitator. And so you've got all of these individuals who are participating. We all know on the World Wide Web, the number one profit-making entity on the web is sex. And then if you talk to individuals who can tell you about this thing called the dark web, where things that would be unbelievable to the average mind are accessed by individuals that know how to do it. Well, if they're doing that on the dark web, what do you think you have when you have powerful individuals that have these fires, they have these desires, they have these lifestyles, they have these wants, and they have someone that's able to facilitate that for them? And then you've got to get up and go to work tomorrow in your political position, in your executive position, in your husband or your wife's position, and pretend as though you are not the person you really are. So sure, you can do a lot of great things in your job, but as you go home and you do what it is that brings you pleasure, that could be a totally different world. So to conflate them, it makes it a little bit more muddy, but to think that people are doing things that we would not even believe possible is another thing. And if you don't believe me, ask somebody about the dark web.
Ken, thoughts?
Well, I've never been on that dark web, but I've seen
Nor have I.
I've seen some things on the non-dark web that make my skin crawl. So, candidly, as a person and for my soul, I don't want to look any further on that. No. And then, briefly, not to get off into the weeds, but what Nixon with Watergate was accused of doing and did do, I think he wasn't that bad of a guy. Just briefly, I think he should have
he was.
Got out of Vietnam before he did.
No, but he was. When he talked about the secret plan to end the war, he had no secret plan, and he also sent LBJ had a peace talk going, and Tu and Key were the two men running Southeast Asia at the time, and he sent Claire Chennault's wife, and she met with him, and she told him, you stay here, don't sit down, don't negotiate. When Richard Nixon becomes president, he'll get you a much better deal. And
yes.
So no, don't. No. The answer is no.
Well, they threw him out of office for the wrong reason, in my opinion.
Well, Ken, let me just jump in on this for just a second as well, because with Nixon, we can really talk about politics and what you're doing in terms of political exploitation and illegal wiretapping and all of the things that we know take place in those halls of power. But when we start talking about, and that's political, but when we start talking about Epstein, I never knew what a freak-off was until I listened to the Diddy trial. And the more I started listening to it, the more I'm like you, Ken, not just being able to look at what's on the web, I couldn't listen to the rest of that trial saying, you mean individuals are doing this to get that, and that's how you make $1 billion, and that's how you get a record contract with no talent, you know? And so, yes, there's a political thing where you're going after your political opponents, you're deceiving the public, you're eroding the trust, and people are seeing what their government is doing. But when you start talking about pedophilia, and you start talking about sex trafficking, and you start talking about disappearing people from the streets and folks that would purchase them and do things with them, it's getting like the term is hell in a handbasket.
Let me do this. I need a pause. Ken, thank you. Good call. Folks on the phones, hang on. Brother Jeff is here. Dr. Daddy-O coming up in the next hour. This is 710 KNUS. It's a Friday morning. Tomorrow morning, I get back on the air at 9 o'clock, and we've been talking, Adam and I have been talking. It looks like we're going to do Open Line Saturday. Everyone hang on, 710 KNUS. Good morning, everyone. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station on a Friday. I'm Peter Boyles in for Jeff and Billy. They're back Monday morning. Phone number 303-696-1971. Brother Jeff is my co-host. We have Jimmy Walker coming up. Back to our phones. We go to Dave in Golden. Dave, you're on a radio show. Thank you and good morning.
Hey, good morning, Pete. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
I've kind of toned this down to some simple steps. Number one, I don't care that whether Epstein took his life or not. He was going to be and should have been dead anyway, and that if he took his own life or if somebody killed him, we're better off for it. But the Epstein files have been with the DOJ since 2019. And I'm thinking Trump would not be president if he had been directly implicated, because the Democrats would have used that against him.
I could do two responses. One, he needed to be alive in order to go on trial, go in the box, and talk. It's the same thing that, hanging Saddam Hussein did nothing. Killing Osama bin Laden did nothing. Bringing them to trial meant all different. And so Epstein was a dead man walking. And the question is, was he killed or did he kill himself? But no, I believe that he should, if he was alive, you'd be, and the other part of it, the other part of it is, as well as, and this is a point that Jeff has been making and others have been making, and put Donald Trump out of the picture. We do know that it was Bill Gates is on this manifest and Bill Clinton's on the manifest. Prince Andrew, is there anything more powerful than the British royals? I mean, I don't know who all was on the manifest, because we're told it doesn't exist, except Dershowitz said it does. So, I mean, I don't think it's that easy.
So that leads me to my two questions. Well, actually, another statement in there is that the British royals, shouldn't they also have a list because Andrew was pretty hastily ostracized by the Brits.
You bet.
I mean, really fast. So there's another leak of the list. But the two questions are: who were the Democrats protecting? And the second question is
Bill Clinton. He's a frequent flyer.
Who else? But who else? And then now, who is Trump blackmailing?
All right, Jeffrey, it's yours.
Well, I think it's very interesting. It's like when you say, who are the Democrats protecting? That list contains Democrats and Republicans, independents and Green Party members, and everybody. Like, I would imagine that list is composed of a little bit of everybody. Nobody wants that list to come out. And I have to agree with Peter in terms of saying, dead men can't talk, they can't testify. In a common trial, that would be called witness tampering. Making sure that the person who's going to take that stand never takes that stand, i.e. Saddam, being able to talk about what really happened when saying, well, now the truth will be known. And so I think the list is all-encompassing, and it's not just political. It's everyone's on that list.
When they got ready for the House Select Committee on the assassination of Jack Kennedy, Sam Giancana never made it. He was murdered in the basement of his house. Johnny Rosselli was murdered. They were two prominent people. They were gangsters. They were thugs. They were responsible for the murders of many people, but they did not. They never made it to the committee.
But this list has been known since 2019. So that's kind of why I think it's just changed control.
No, so when the AG says the list doesn't exist, how do you react?
No, they told us it did back in 2019.
Well, of course. And
exactly.
Dershowitz says he saw it, read it.
Yeah. So that's why I say now it's in control of another power, And so that power now has control over the blackmailing.
Poof. Jeffrey?
Well, one thing we can all agree on, I hope, is that we know there's a list, even though now folks say there's no list that exists.
No clients.
We know that there's a list, and it would be hard pressed for anyone to say that it doesn't. And one thing that we do know is once you get on a stand and you're charged with something, you get to depose and you get to call witnesses and you get to reveal, and none of that will be revealed in our lifetime. Someone will open it up 100 years from now and say, you know what, this is what was taking place then, but they're not going to let that out now.
And don't you think they would have offered a deal to Epstein to speak, to talk? They'd have said,
absolutely.
I mean, I believe that.
That list was Epstein's insurance policy. That was his insurance policy, and I think that was his get-out-of-jail-free card, and he never got out of jail, and he never got a chance to use it.
I'm going to read, this is a very great text. It said, I concur with it, Peter, regarding the advantages of a trial. Capturing Eichmann from Argentina and returning him to Israel was far more beneficial than executing him immediately when they found him. And, of course, that's what they did to Osama. That's what they did to Saddam. They didn't want those people back on trial in New York.
No.
And so what did they do?
Let's take a look at the way the world is being manipulated now with tariffs, with deals, with contracts with entities that are coming and going. And Trump's art of the deal is that, okay, I got you hanging by your you know what, and we're going to do things my way. I don't know. I'm just seeing, I'm watching the way things are being played, and this is my background thought of what does Trump have on these people to get these deals?
What do they have on Trump? I mean,
again, I don't think he would have been president if he would have been implicated.
You know, you want to believe it, but Jeff, go ahead. Jeffrey, your turn.
No, I think that we've got to go back further and say that before Trump was a politician or an elected official, he was a part of that jet set crowd and that in crowd, and it would not be surprising to know that he knows how the inside of that industry works. I'm not saying that he's participating, but I would not find it hard to believe that he knows who is participating. What we do see is that there's a world for the rich and the famous and the powerful, and it does not include us. And now you've got individuals who have been untouchable that are getting touched. And now we've got to ask, what's the why behind that?
We got to cut it. I'm going to put Jeff up on hold. Dave, thank you. We're going to come back with the one, the only Jimmy Walker and the journey of James, Dr. Daddy-O Jimmy Walker, who Jeffrey, of course, knows very, very well. And I listened to before I was in working in radio. I was a Jimmy Walker fan, the house party, and he's going to join us, and it should be a good hour. Jeff stays. Jimmy Walker coming up. 710 KNUS, 86 for the high today, 85 Saturday, Sunday 93. We're back here tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Adam, we ready? We can do it. Coming back with Jimmy Walker.